public comments? No. Then I will ask you all to quickly review and approve the minutes if you hadn't already in the email that was sent. I will take any motions to do so. A second?
Second.
Anybody against or abstain? Excellent. My gavel says minutes are approved. Financial update. We have a cost savings, it seems.
Yes.
You want to talk to us about it?
It's not that much, but on your last page, you can see, well, you have to do a little bit of math. It fluctuates back and forth, but we do have a cost savings that we are attempting to use. Yes, we do have a cost savings. We're planning on doing some marketing PR stuff with that if we're able to make all of the dots come together. It's about $30-something thousand, and we're trying to put together a complete, next year is our 60th anniversary, and we're in some preliminary plans of trying to hold a big event and what that would look like. We've met with a couple council people who have agreed to help us. So hopefully next month I can give you a little bit more details, but we're hoping to really have a big deal and even a fundraising end on the back. The issue of the Nashville not having an African-American museum continues to be discussed, and so there is a fund at Community Foundation already for that. So that may be the hook behind the 60th year celebration, is to try to raise funds. We have people who've committed to help us in sponsorships because we don't have the budget to do a big foray. So those savings would produce the media, maybe even some booklets. We're doing a documentary on the 60 years of the MHRC. And as soon as we get a complete plan together, we'll bring it to you and share it with you. And just trying to line up all of the pieces, even this piece with the budget savings of being able to use those in this way, and that we know what we would get out of that. But yes, as you can see, our budget is always pretty well straightforward. The mayor released his budget this year, and from the budget that we submitted to you all, we were not funded on any of our ask. So we have one more opportunity where we will have a hearing next week before the council budget committee at 5:50. I think I've reached out that if you're available, I would love for you to go. And if not, we'll seek to get another commissioner to go with us.
No, I'll be happy to go to that. So this 30-something, do y'all have to spend it by a certain time or you lose it? Yeah, when is that time? July? Yeah.
Yes, when the new budget starts.
Okay.
And so even in doing that, all of the processes necessary to, if we're going to use it for this, we have to kind of try to have a vendor or vendors in line that have prices already, so that we don't run up against the time, the time frame of it.
And I think you have some in mind.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So right now you're waiting for approvals, and once you get those, you can go forward.
Well, approvals and prices, and if we're able to get the help that seems to be materializing, because next month I will call names and say, who's going to help us do this?
Okay. Hello. Yes. Okay, got it. Anybody got any questions about that? I think I'm the only one asking about it. Okay, great. So good luck in getting that spent on the things you need before. And now we can move on to more money discussion, which is the executive director salary increase. Basically, I have two important points to make here. One, Davey, our executive director, has not gotten a raise in 2 years since he got the job. So we need to amend that situation. And the second thing is, I have a list of sort of all the ED salaries in Metro, and he's towards the lower end. So I'll give you an idea. We've got 109, 101, 109, 119 are the lower, and then you've got all the way to 224. And then in the middle is like 157, 146, whatever. Our ED's at about 126.
And just for clarity, those are from the bottom third of Metro EDs.
Okay, so that's not all the EDs. That's the bottom third of Metro EDs. Yeah, that's surprising. Okay, so they go above
Oh, yes.
the lower third.
Yeah. The 224, actually, that's a misprint. It really shouldn't be in there. That is the
Office of Emergency Management.
Yeah, the Office of Emergency Management, with it's actually filled by the chief of police. The chief of fire.
Yeah. So the bottom third is like 140, 150, 120, 101. Yeah. But 150, 160, that's what I'm saying. So our ED's at 126, 445, and we need to suggest a raise. There's, you can do a 20%, 10% raise. You can do a lump sum to bring him closer to this kind of middle of this bell curve, or the bottom third. So I would say, average in this bottom third is somewhere near 155, 160, looks like, off the cuff. Do you want to look at it too? You do the math better. So we could do either or, 20% or just bring him up to a certain amount. I think bringing him up to a certain amount makes us know where we're at. Right now, the way I understand it is we suggest what we think is what he should make, and then we will be responded to with, within the grade and within that, what's available. Yeah.
Yeah, in the budget process, we have a line in there that explains out that one of those would be used for a raise for me, but also salaries in general. So after you approve it, we have to still go get it approved by council in our budget. So you can approve it and we not get the funds, and it won't happen because we can't use budget savings for ongoing expense. For salaries, you have to have continuous money. So salary savings can't be used to give someone a raise because it's just a one-time group of money.
Yes, Gemma.
I want to suggest, let's do that report that I love so much, the inclusivics. Let's go what the other boys are doing and start in that range up in there and work our way out of that, So yeah, let's do that.
Can you pull that up and just tell us what those ranges are?
Let's just start there, let's throw it out
I just
there.
want to note on the level of trust in our commission that my phone is just floating all around there. Sorry.
Let's do that. Let's start.
I'm fine to talk about that if y'all want to pull that up and just give us an idea of those ranges. Yeah. I remember some very high ones. I think.
Yeah, and there's a correction. That is from the bottom third of inclusivics, but that does not take into account the cost of living increase. So it's at 136 currently. So the list that we will show you will be dated back to that point.
So it says, just for clarity, it says 126, 445 here, but he got a COLA increase last year, so he's at 136. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And the inclusivics would be data from 2022.
Okay.
Or 21.
We can do the cost of living adjustments along the way to bring it to 2024. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if we start always at the lower bottom, then we would never break the trend that Metro has in hiring people of color, because we're starting at a number that's lower anyway. So let's just go over here with a white male pay raise and how they work through their pay increases.
If this is the bottom third, just for an idea, where the middle and top thirds are. Oh, okay.
Well, I tell you what, if we could, I tell you what.
And can I get a job?
I was
at
about
one
to
of
say,
the-
no, can I have a bottom third job?
If we could do this and move this to next month, we will bring the current, what they are now, we can bring the current.
Well, I am sensitive to time that we've let 2 years go, and this needs to happen.
Yeah, but we still, even if you approve it next month, we still
You're
have
okay.
to get it through the budget, which will be voted on third Tuesday in June. So, and we go before the
That's really
committee.
That's really tight. You're gonna get your amount at the beginning of June and then try to work it into their budget?
Well, when we appear before the council, we've asked for increases that we didn't get in the mayor's budget. So if they give us any increases in our budget, what we're asking for is for payroll. So,
So they didn't give any increase for the commission at all? It's staying flat? There's no increase for anything?
well, the regular cost of living increases.
It's just that?
But just the way the way it was explained to me of what had to be done from multiple sources was you have to vote a percentage, but then the commission has to get the money in our budget.
The council.
Either through the council or through the administration.
Question, I've missed a meeting or two. Are we hitting quorum regularly, or do you know that people are going to be here to vote on this 1 week before it has to go wherever?
Well, if we're presenting in front of council next Tuesday at 5:50, we should bring this number to that meeting. That's
Oh, I
my
thought
concern.
he said the second Tuesday in June.
Well, that's the full council
Oh.
vote, but we are presenting,
Oh.
so what happens is that every agency comes before council and says like Parks comes and says, I want roads, I want this, and explains it to council. They don't vote, they just get the information and they're clear and whatever, and then they do the big vote. So this is your moment to argue for what you want, and if we're not bringing that number, I don't know, that just concerns me that we're missing a moment to kind of work that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So they're working hard over here. I'd like for
Let me
us.
just run some numbers off, that these are current from right now.
Yeah, let's get this done.
These
today.
top third, this is,
No, this is the top
oh,
ones. This is about 20 or so. They're either DP 1, Department Director 1, or Department Director 2. Water Services Director 297, Police Chief 265, NDOT Director 254, Finance Director 247, Metro Action Commission 246, Fire Chief 245, Planning Commission Executive Director 242, Codes Administration Director 232, Social Services Director 231, the Law Director 230, ITS 228, General Services Director 220, Arts Executive Director 201, Metropolitan Auditor 196, Human Resource Director 191, Parks and Recreation 179, Community Review Board Executive Director 169, Emergency Communications Director 165, Beer Permit Board Executive Director 164, Justice Information System, 160. Director of Criminal Justice Planning,
Okay.
okay.
I would like for this, I would like for us to vote on this today so we can talk about it next Tuesday. Davey, don't you think that we need to actually advocate for this
Yes.
in that meeting?
Yes.
So I'm suggesting we start at 180 as the new floor for this role. Gemma?
What about everybody else? Do they get a raise?
Well, that's
Well-
what happened. Nobody got a raise.
Oh,
Well,
we better
no,
get in here.
Last year, now there are some increases in staff, but last year, I did not, because I advocated for them. They got reclassified and they got a raise.
Okay.
So not only did they get the regular COLA, but reclassification and a raise with that. So that their place that they have has a longer, much higher period. And that was a decision that I made last year. And I think I mentioned in one of the meetings that I wasn't advocating for myself last year, that I was advocating for staff. And so we did do that on their behalf. So this year, they're proposing a 3.5% COLA and then up to 4% merit raises for qualified positions.
Can our staff get merit raises?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I remember, so there was a whole thing of what did you call it? We had to reclassify, people's roles because they were under the lower classifications and we needed to bring them up, and that did happen.
Yes.
And thank you for doing that. Okay, so, and 3.5 COLA is not great, but it is somewhat standard. That's where I'm starting, at 180. Marcus's face has a lot of wrinkles on it. What do you want to do?
I mean, I'm gonna shoot for the stars. 'Cause
Okay.
You gotta
Okay.
tell me. You gotta tell me no on stuff.
Okay, let's do it. What are you thinking?
I mean, I moved it. His pay be
Two.
moved to 215.
Okay, so I don't.
Tell me no.
I'm good. I mean, that range is a really good range to be working towards, because I feel like if we don't start forcing these salaries up, giving even a 20% increase is like, we're never gonna get people to parity and where they should be. So this range, yes, I'm all for working whatever we all decide. If it's 215, I'm good with that.
I was about to say, I'm also not as keen to is this going to sound preposterous when if you bring that number up in the meeting? Are they going to laugh at you?
I mean, an almost $100,000 raise is a lot, but I think it's about the conversation too. It's about this conversation. Yes, Gemma?
And if, I don't mean to get in your business, but aren't you paying your own legal fees and counseling and all of that kind of stuff too? Because of your job?
Yes.
I say stay
yeah.
right there with 215 and then we'll work our way out, because his position caused him external fees that was not necessarily in the beginning of when he started. We didn't know any of it, this was gonna happen. So he got good lawyers, and good lawyers cost money. In order to do his job, he had to hire a lawyer to do his job.
I mean, and considering the duties and responsibilities of this position too, I mean, how can we not advocate for something higher, considerably higher? Because this is important work. It needs to be respected and valued. And one way of doing that is showing that we have faith and confidence in the executive director, and that we feel like strongly that he needs to be compensated fairly for the work that he's doing.
Yeah, that's what's running through my mind is like the work that MHRC is doing for the city is significant and unique and essential, right? Those are the words that you use to describe sort of like the value of something. It's not peripheral, it's not duplicative, it's not, and so I just, and there's an immense amount of responsibility associated with it, not just in terms of operations, but in terms of just political and whatnot. And so it's a lot of work. So yeah, I think we get to raise that floor for the future. Also going by our own inclusivics, like we want to raise the salary of the people of color that are in management. So I guess you and I would go next Tuesday, we'd say, we believe, we'd need an argument, we'd need like clarity of how we came up with this number, and we would have to put it within, I mean, typically when I'd have to do that, it's like, well, this is the grade, or this is, and I think you gave us that spectrum, and we believe that, given his years of experience, the amount of work that this is, we think it should be, 2 to 215, and then they can, I don't know. Then they might come back with, well, we don't have 75K to give to this, or whatever it might be, and we can.
Well, if we're not strong in our presentation, I don't mind being there. So, I think we have to have a voice that said, this is the right thing to do, especially with all that came with this past year. So
I'm sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say too, and I don't know if it would, but I think it's something that we should have in our back pocket, is if we can benchmark against similar positions in similar sized cities. Yeah. And say, in wherever, Charlotte or Austin or wherever, this similar position, again, I don't know if that helps or hurts, but I think it is really important to have in our back pocket.
Okay, then we get a motion for 215, and we go with that. What?
No, I mean, this is you all deliberating on what to pay me. I am definitely grateful for the strong, really strong words of support, and we will have to argue that, and we would have to be able to negotiate that too, and we can negotiate that if in our hearing or whatever that's talked about. I think that's the moment that we can get a sense and a feel.
But let's get a sense of what the least, I mean, if we're going to, what's the lowest we would,
I think I think it's about presenting those numbers, presenting the immense amount of responsibility that this job entails, the amount that a small group does, and then talking about our values as a city and what we're trying to build moving forward for management and people of color that are in management. And so I think that's what we say. I would need those numbers and be ready to argue that. And I don't know, the lower bar of it.
Well, I'm a DP1
Okay.
now, and there's a DP2 position. The DP1
Yeah, that's
starts at 112 and maxes out at 214. The DP2 starts at 152 and it maxes out at 305.
So those are the grades, like in government. What does DB stand for?
Director pay.
Okay, so you're in the first director pay
director
echelon.
pay 1.
And how do we get you into the second director pay echelon, like the next band?
We would have to run it through
We need like a promotion.
HR, and that may even have to, Mel, do you remember? I know you.
So then this makes a lot of sense to go to 214 with the intention to get you into that other grade based on performance in the next year.
I'll find out the process for that, because we had to
That makes sense.
There's coordination with HR, the justification, then there's coordination with finance. And then I know in the case with some of the staff we actually had to go in front of the Civil Service Commission. So.
Then that, knowing that range, I think 214 makes a lot of sense. The highest on that. And if we find out what the process is, we can argue within that process too.
And I'll find all that
Yeah,
out in the next
and then
couple
we
of
can
days.
work for the next echelon, yes.
One final comment. Mel, since you were in this position previously, is it okay if I direct a question to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel that our line of conversation here is needed and is important?
Absolutely, and to put some history on it too, I think 10 years ago when I accepted this position, there was only one director position that paid less in all of Metro. So I think that the respect and value that Metro government generally provided this role in this commission, I think, was reflected in that. And a former chair, Phyllis Hildreth, did some hard work with a former administration to raise the salary while I was here. But it was still one of the least, or one of the smallest salaries for any director.
So I'd like to make a motion to aim for 214 within the DP1, and to come up with justifications of the important work that MHRC does, led by our executive director at the meeting on Tuesday, and to ask Miriam to negotiate in good faith, however that goes, because I think it is important to highlight how important, especially our report was for the Metro Arts.
I second.
A second.
Can I add one other thing? I'm sorry. Historically speaking, too, I think that it might be important in your negotiations to look at the history of the directors in this position, because I think that what you will see is it is women and people of color or women of color historically. And so, quite frankly, I'm not entirely surprised that that the salaries were what they were.
Thank you.
No,
Okay.
I'm just gonna restart that motion again.
Okay.
So,
Second.
Second. No abstentions or against, so the motion to recommend Davey, our executive director, for 214 on the DP scale moves. Great, and I will be happy to advocate for that very strongly.
Thank you all very, very much. Well, I had to say, I mean, it's sounding good to me. Thank you for your confidence.
The other thought that just came to me is like, we have, corporations, Oracle, blah, 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 AB, all these people moving here with immense salaries. And for the people that are keeping Metro going and honest and working so hard, I mean, we can't have salaries be so different from what those corporations are advertising and paying. That just seems really wrong to me. So I think this is a good move and probably still very low compared to those salaries. Okay, awesome. So let's move forward. Let's talk about the famous conciliation process and updates.
Okay. I'm going to start, then Ashley's going to pick up, then if Mel has an update, and then if you have questions, we'll just try to answer everything. Things are starting to move. I still have questions around whether conciliation and what it means is actually happening. But we are knocking off blocks of what our recommendations are. I think a lot of that, I want to give credit to Mel and her wrangling with the lawyers. There's 5 different law firms involved in all of this at this point. And things, ever since the announcement about people getting paid, that process has seemed to pick up since Mel is talking with the lawyers. We're still not part of conversations that go into making decisions that make us have to respond on the end after something has gone out and they've had to go back and change. It's not conciliation in its best form, but as you'll hear from Ashley, this is a win. To me, it's a huge win. And the bricks are starting to fall. And I think at the end of the day that the work that we've done will create systemic change, that the way allocation of grants through Metro Arts were done in the past will not happen like that in the future. So we're going to try to run through this and not take up too much time. And I may jump in to make points as we move along. And you too, ma'am.
Me, right? Okay. Hi, everyone. So I wanted to share sort of a substantive update about where we are in the details and some specifics. And so I've got a few different categories of how I'm going to do that. So first is like immediate conciliation, which is getting people paid, right? So there's kind of two things going on with the status of payment, eligibility, and then distribution of funds. And so you can recall, starting with your letter, the commission's letter on April 2nd, we had several questions in there about who is eligible for funding based on the information that we had compiled. That letter, of course, was shared with the mayor and the council and the attorneys representing the different agencies. We haven't received a direct response to our letters or communications. And so, like Davey said, we're kind of learning the answers to them through things as they happen. So Thrive projects are being paid, of course, the second $10,000 after that funding was cut in half. There's no objections to that. One of the first things that we've been asking is the Thrive mural projects. And so those were projects that were cut completely. And that's contested right now. So we have one complainant who is a mural project that they applied for, and there's about 30 murals total that were completely not funded. So the contested issue in that, as we understand it, is if the commission ever explicitly voted to remove mural projects. And on the artists and the community side, mural artists received all the same communication as they did, as other Thrive projects did. And so that's detailed in the letter that we sent, and then a much more detailed sort of amendment or addendum that we sent after the fact with more documentation. So that's still contested. The second thing that we asked in our letter was, will micro, small, and medium-sized organizations receive the higher grant amount, which was in July, so will that vote be honored for them as well? I'll say that we are led to believe, yes, they will. I had a representative from a medium-sized organization notify me on Thursday of last week that they were sent a letter with information around a supplemental award to make up for that difference. And so one way for me to say that is our complaint focused on Thrive awards a lot, but this outcome and these decisions are actually raising the grant amounts for small organizations as well. And then the third sort of category of eligibility is that there were about a dozen micro and small organizations that were eligible to receive both a Thrive and organization operating grant that were approved in July, but then were cut in August. And so our question has been, will the July vote be honored for them? And we have not received a response to that yet. And so we've written 3 memos about these 3 topics of eligibility. So that's eligibility.
And before you move on.
Yeah.
And our position is that They all need to be made whole. And it's not clear that they expressly took Thrive out. And so our position is that they are due to be paid. So that's part of the ongoing process that we continue to do.
And so just a few words around the distribution of funds. So that is being managed and overseen, as we understand it, by Metro Legal and Finance. There was a letter mailed to Thrive recipients on Friday, April 12th. So with instructions for claiming that funding, and asked Thrive recipients to mail a signed form back in order to receive the other half of their grant. I will say we were under the impression that we were able to sort of weigh in on the content of that letter, but we got it only the day before it was mailed. And so when we did respond, we learned it had already been sent out. And so some of the suggestions that we tried to provide were around sort of a more robust community engagement plan of how to reach out to folks, use of electronic communication in addition to mailing, and a few other things around sort of clarity of that. And some of those things have been implemented after the fact, and so people are able to send that form back electronically and not only in the mail, but I think that was through some mishaps along the way. So for example, like 2 of our 3 Thrive complainants had the letter sent to the wrong address. So that's just 2 of the 3 that we communicate with pretty frequently. So that letter was mailed on April 12th, and on May 1st, we received a list of the Thrive recipients that they mailed that to so that we can cross-check it with the documentation that we have. And yeah, I'll just say, like, I certainly acknowledge that it's a lot of sort of questions, like one by one questions that Metro Legal is processing through as they're working on this. But from what I hear, there are a lot of questions on the community side as well. So that's what I wanted to share for sort of eligibility and distribution of funds. And that's like immediate conciliation, get folks paid. So I'm gonna ask Mel, Davey to talk about sort of bigger picture conciliation, how that's going. And then I wanna just name a couple things after that. So do you wanna share about what you've been working on?
Yes, thank you. And I do want to just say thank you so much, Ashley. She's one of the better clients I've ever had. She does her homework and is really accurate in her communications. So it has made my life easier for sure. What has not necessarily made my life easier is trying to move the larger conciliation process forward. I can report that both Metro Arts and Metro Legal their attorneys are participating in conciliation conversations, and the Metro Arts in particular is very interested in reaching a conciliated resolution without a formal hearing. And, you know, if you look at local news and sort of paid attention to other things that are happening with Metro Arts, they've got a lot on their plate. So I have a lot of empathy for the leaders there right now, and quite frankly for their lawyer too, right, who's trying to help them through this particular issue. There's certainly a desire to reach a conciliated resolution. Doing that means wrangling a lot of moving parts, right? And I think that this letter that went out to Thrive recipients is a very good microcosm of just like how complicated it feels or looks right now. You know, as Ashley said, we did not have an opportunity to weigh in on the contents of that letter prior to it being sent to Thrive recipients, including the complainants in this case. And one of the concerns that we raised was that some of the language in that letter appeared to be a waiver of any other claims that they might have by accepting the stated amount. And so I'm working with Metro Legal, their attorney, on what that means. We absolutely did raise concerns about, you know, if we're going to have a full-scale conciliation of this complaint, it can't be through a letter sent without your input. So where we are now is I've met twice in person with the attorneys for Metro Legal and Metro Arts. I've met with some of the complainants who I do not represent, but their input is critical. It's necessary, right, to reach a conciliated resolution. And I know this takes a long time, you guys, but I think for any real long-term workable solution that's agreed upon by all the parties, the first thing we have to do is agree on the process. Right? I think, you know, when you're dealing with large public conflict, I think a lot of times people skip the conversation about what the process actually is going to be, and to get all the parties on board with what that process looks like so that they are fully engaged in the process. So I think we're really close to a shared understanding of, you know, how are we going to have these conciliation meetings where we can actually hammer out what are the demands and how can those demands be met. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to have those meetings. I'm hoping that they will start no later than 2 weeks from now. It's, you know, a lot of folks getting people into the same room, but I know that the attorneys I'm working with are committed to getting their people to the table.
So you think that there's a high likelihood that that process will happen?
I think that there's a very high likelihood that the process will happen. That's not necessarily to say that, you know, it will, I guarantee that it will result in a conciliated resolution. But without the process, I can tell you there won't be a conciliated resolution.
Got it.
Can I share a few more things?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to just end by naming sort of some of, related to the Title VI complaint, some of the things that the Arts Commission will have to work through around how we move forward, how they move forward, our involvement, community's involvement, et cetera. So 2 kind of things. The status of Thrive is being discussed a lot right now. So again, Thrive is the program that primarily brought us into it, the payments or the grants to individual artists. And so this has been around again since 2014. And at the Arts Commission Grants Committee meeting on April 17th, a representative from Metro Finance visited the commission to state that Thrive violates some procurement policies or way of doing things. And so while they explain how it doesn't match with the policies, what hasn't been explained is how they've been able to do it for 10 years. up until now. So there's a lot of discussion, tension right now around how do they do this moving forward. So there have been some ideas or some offerings, some preliminary ideas that have been shared that I just wanted to make y'all aware of. One was an idea to have a foundation or a nonprofit house Thrive. So allocate funding to a foundation and have them run Thrive, or to provide funding to arts organizations where individual artists can come be sponsored through there. So basically adding a middleman, or sort of outsourcing the program and running it that way. I will say, just based on the public comments that I've seen as I go to meetings, I think people are kind of wary of that.
Well,
And
I'll
you say
be
some
a
things.
bit more. We are emphatically opposed to that. The bottom line to any thought along that line means that less public funds are available to artists, because those organizations will take an administrative cut, sometimes up to 25%. The arts department, and whatever's been going on the last 10 years, has always had adequate staff to process these. So again, if you go back, there was never a problem until this group, I don't know how to say it, I don't know whether they got too much money or whatever it is, now it's a problem. But this process was never a problem. Metro has just announced the other night that they've had all these clean audits. We're still waiting on the audit to come out from arts, but I'm sure that they've been audited in the last 10 years, and this was okay. I've said from the beginning, I think this is subterfuge. The program is not the problem. So that's how we're pushing forward with that.
Are you asking a question? No, okay. Yes. Yeah, and if there are conversations that are being had, outside of the commission, like amongst finance and things, like we've not been invited to those conversations, right? So all we have to go on is what we are observing in these meetings. And so Thrive is one. The second thing is just the grant structure and formulas for this current year. And so similar to last year, there's a high demand of applicants who have applied for grants through Metro Arts. So it's 201 Thrive applicants and 109 organizations. That's even more slightly up from last year. So Metro Arts is really known in the community now about these programs. And my read of the budget last week that was released by the mayor's office is that it's a status quo budget. It says that there's about $3.2 million for arts and arts organizations. And based on my read of what the Metro Arts Director submitted as the budget request, they've identified that it's about $10.6 million to fully fund all of the grant applications, the request. So, 3.2 million available to fund, 10 million requested via applications. And so it's unknown to us and from the public meetings that we've been observing is what they're going to do this year. How are they going to make those decisions, right? And so are they going to use the funding formulas from last year? How are they going to scale that based on the available funding? And so right now, more demand than funding.
And this brings up an issue that hopefully we can put to bed through the conciliation process. Our contention all along from day one is these were not race-based grants. And so there are several things that may fall up out of this is that there needs to be a disparity study or whatever. Again, this program has existed for 10 years. that runs through procurement and legal every year, and there was never a problem. So we're going to resist any attempt to make this an entitlement program or something, because it has never been. And that's one of my major concerns about this little tidbit.
And then just last thing so you all are aware, the commission, I think it was last week, voted to offer a position of interim executive director to Dr. Paulette Coleman. Dr. Singh is still currently on FMLA and administrative leave, and so they've asked HR with their vote to extend an offer to Dr. Coleman. As we understand it, she's having conversations with some key stakeholders this week, and I'm not sure that she has accepted the position right now, but that is happening.
And Dr. Coleman reached out through HR. HR sent us a email that she wanted to meet with us. And so I think it was Thursday or Friday of last week. I forget which day it was, but Ashley and I met with Dr. Coleman for a couple of hours. She was real inquisitive. She wanted to know about the impact of the Title VI complaint. And she said she was extremely interested in our recommendations around moving forward. We've extended, if she accepts the position, we've extended our help to assist her in any way possible. And I think that's a good sign that she actually wanted to speak with us prior to doing that.
Okay, my very last things, I promise. Sort of bigger picture policy changes that are directly attributable to this work or related. There's a few pieces of legislation that has been introduced around the Arts Commission. One piece is to add more explicit equity, just the words equity, into the code for the Arts Commission as part of their purpose and duties. The second piece of legislation is to appoint a council member to serve on the Arts Commission. That is just being introduced on first reading tomorrow. And also being introduced on first reading tomorrow is a proposal that the Arts Commission must obtain yearly approval from the Metro Council on its grant criteria. And so that was specifically one of the recommendations from our report.
And if I could jump in there, I'm grateful for the council's openness and granting of time, and even asking us after the report came out around what type of ordinances could help make sure that this doesn't happen again. So these things at various levels we've been involved in, and we're extremely grateful, and we hope that they all will pass. And the last one is actually one of our recommendations, is that the council approve that funding criteria every year.
Yeah, and then just last things here, just sort of other related legislation that's recently passed or is pending or is in discussion that we see as relevant to this. The council's sort of created a longer vetting time for all boards and commission appointees so that candidates can be evaluated a little more intentionally. There's a lot of discussion right now around legislation that would require financial disclosures for board and commission members. That's very much in discussion still. There's a special called Rules Committee meeting this Wednesday evening around the questionnaire that board and commission nominees fill out, what needs to be changed to that. They're actually bringing in the chair of the Arts Commission to be part of that conversation and to share other things that that committee, that vets appointments should be thinking about. a lot of conversations right now around board and commission sort of training requirements. So those are all sort of moving conversations that we see related to this work.
And the last one is actually another one of our recommendations that Metro Legal, in concert with the other parties, develop this training guide that would help bring people on board to boards and commissions. And we asked specifically about explaining the unique relationship between Metro Legal and boards and commissions, with attention toward conflicts and the resolutions that exist for those. So those things are moving forward. I'm excited about the possibilities.
If I might, I'd like to add something in the same vein. I've certainly heard here in this body and talking to the staff and the complainants for the Title VI complaint, a large concern here is who in Metro government would feel comfortable doing required, necessary equity work right now, given what happened here, right? What department or board would feel comfortable looking at the impact that their work has on different demographics and being very clear and express about what they're doing in doing that? I think nobody would feel very comfortable doing that right now. And to me, and I think I hear it from you all, that that is a real tragedy. And so I want you to know that I've been really clear in conciliation conversations, that while that may or may not be something that is directly at issue for these particular complainants, it is something that this body is going to insist be addressed in conciliation conversations. How can Metro Legal, in particular, better communicate what the boundaries are, and better support the equity work that departments want to do and should be doing?
Quick, Mel, if I could back up to your conversation around the comments that you made regarding the language that is used and how that goes out to individuals. I know we all had to do the training on sexual harassment and all of those things. It seems to me that there seems to be a doubling down on how the messaging regarding this particular issue keeps coming back. We got the letter from, I think it was finance, I'm not sure, that we all kind of did this and choked up, like what happened here. And I remember Galinda saying the word, this is very paternalistic sounding and everything. Do you think that maybe also, since we're here and we're at that crossroad, that maybe Metro needs conversation, like words matter kind of training going on? Because it seems to me that even in the process of coming together, there's still a condescending voice around the work that we are doing, that you guys are doing, to get the work done on how not to, my grandma would say, don't agitate the natives. So it just seems like it keep coming up. What are your thoughts on that? And how could we help with the conversations to make it not sound like I don't really want to be here, but I got to be here and I'm going to do what,
Wow, I think we might have to write a dissertation on that, but yeah, I do think that it is pretty remarkable that responses to legitimate complaints are just, well, you're a complainer. Like, rather than, okay, like, is there something here that needs to be remedied? And quite frankly, I think that when race is involved, and particularly systemic racism, people respond in ways that are like, well, that they're affronted by, being shown ways in which in which they have participated, knowingly or unknowingly, in perpetuating systemic inequality and racism. And I think that what you all have done in the commitment to this report and really sticking with this issue, I think has done a pretty remarkable job already in educating around this issue, and showing, because look, you can read a book about this stuff, but what we have seen here is a real life example. We've seen it played out right in front of our eyes. This city has. And, I think that ensuring that part of the conciliation process includes commitments going forward on, how we are going to engage together, right? Metro Finance, Metro Legal, Metro Arts, like how are we going to engage together to address these challenges? I think that's a really fair thing to talk about in a conciliated resolution. And in fact, is something that is more likely to happen in a conciliated resolution rather than an adversarial hearing.
Okay. Thank you for that really sensitive update. Do you want to say something about that?
I just have a couple questions. One, Mel, regarding to your comment that, who would work on equity now in the city? And I just wanted to ask because Metro Legal's use of the anti-affirmative action ruling by the Supreme Court is still, to my knowledge, unresolved. And there's no latest word as to how that's going to apply. And that has caused all of how we rethink everything. And to me, it seems like that needs to be addressed, even if the director of Metro Legal comes out and says, I think he said at one point, we don't want to overreact or something like that, but something needs to be, that's unresolved. And I just don't understand how a city can move on if Metro Legal has made that as a kind of policy moving forward, advising Metro Arts that. So I don't understand is one, and maybe that contributes to this kind of question about how do we move forth working on equity. And the other thing is I wanted to ask Ashley about the question of the Thrive grants. Is this back to an accounting issue where these Thrive organizations don't have 401c3 and bank accounts? And are we saying that, what is the illegitimacy of these organizations for Thrive?
Yeah, it's not about having a nonprofit 501c3 status. Thrive was set up to not require that. That's why or one reason why it exists, right? From the presentation that I watched, again, at the grants committee, some of the things that they said is that it's not compliant with bidding requirements where you need to seek 3 bids.
Through procurement.
Procurement.
That's right.
Yes.
The problem as I understand it is that Metro Code currently does not technically allow for the kind of payment to individuals that Thrive provides for. That, first of all, that Metro Arts does not have the authority to provide grants to individuals through their governing legislation and procurement. Like the provision of these grants, these individual artist grants through procurement doesn't comply with current procurement rules. So it's a logistical problem that, as Davey pointed out, Director Tucker pointed out, wasn't a problem until, these complaints were made, and, we've all had to dig in.
And I want to reiterate right there, it wasn't a problem. Those contracts and documents require signatures from multiple departments before a check is sent to anyone. It was in operation for 10 years, and it never was a problem. Now there's a procurement problem.
To be charitable, and I probably have a more charitable read on it, that yes, it was allowed to happen for 10 years. And, if we had some litigated matter over that, we could say, well, you waiver, right? Like you waived, or there's all kinds of legal arguments to be made. But you let this happen for so long that, give me a break. But I think that there is a will to fix it. It isn't simply, oh, well, we can't do it. It's not in the code, right? Okay, yeah, granted, it was all perfectly fine for 10 years until these complainants came forward and has now sort of dug this up. But my reading and my talking to all the parties so far is there is a will to fix that. So it is no longer a logistical problem.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Okay, and if I could answer your question. Look, to be perfectly frank, Metro Legal's never going to agree with my analysis. I don't think that that's going to happen on the application of the affirmative action ruling to this particular decision by Metro Arts. But what I do think is, if they're going to stand firm on their reading and they're not going to agree with my analysis, well, maybe a third party here, a third party expert, can answer this question for Metro Nashville. And my conversation so far also suggests that there's some appetite to agree to that.
And as the client, and trying to understand Metro Legal's relationship with boards and commissions, and they offer advice and counsel. What I would like is for them to consider MHRC's defense of what was happening through Mail's paper and come up with, is it defensible? If it is defensible, then we would request that if there were some suit, that Metro would defend us in it. Because courts is where things are decided. So it's just their opinion. But I would like for them to seriously consider, is our position defensible? And if it is, defend us.
Okay, and I'm sensitive to time. I think that from my read on this is they want to keep it very contained to this instance and this moment. They do not want to let this decision apply elsewhere, and so are not interested in like Mel's like, they're not gonna agree with my analysis on this decision. Do they have an appetite to analyze this anti-affirmative action Supreme Court and make a decision for the city? I'm guessing no, but would it be different? Probably, than what they advised here.
Here's my fear. You have legal ideologies, and we can look across the landscape of our country,
Yeah.
various states.
Yeah.
And so you have conservative ideologies and more progressive ones. And so to me, I would hope Nashville would have a progressive legal ideology. But if it's going to be a ultra-conservative one, I think that's not only going to be problematic in this situation, it will continue to be problematic as the city continues to move forward.
Okay.
I'm not in trouble.
I think you said the thing you needed to say, and I will leave it at that. I will say, having taken a ton of federal money and made grants, I know this contractual thing that you have to do with single individuals. And it is bureaucratic, largely. And it is 3 bids because you cannot make a grant to an individual unless it's like a fellowship or something like that. And if you've not built that infrastructure, you have to make a contract. And if it's a contract, it has to be 3 bids, and then you have to, and I don't know. So anyways, I'm guessing it's something like that. We can move on from this. Thank you for the update. Thank you for the good work. It is late. We don't have any more quorum. So this bylaws and rules thing, can we? Oh, yeah, we got more people. Yes. Okay, sorry. I forgot that we got more people. So let's quickly do, y'all are whispering about something. Is there more that you want to talk about, or can we move on? Okay. Can we do the bylaws and rules document edits? From what I understand, this is simply changing the address on the document.
Yes.
So we just need a motion to change the address to the current address, which, yeah.
I make a motion to have the new address be accurately represented.
Yes, can I get a second?
Second.
Great, no abstentions, no,
Well, you got to call for the vote.
okay. Okay, you do your motion. Can I get a motion for changing the address to the current address of MHRC?
I make a motion to correctly address ourselves on the bylaws and rules documents.
And can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, and then you want me to,
Ask who's in favor.
okay, can I get everyone that is in favor of this motion?
Aye.
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 Then everyone is in favor. Gemma, you said aye? Yes?
Yes.
But also offer
Aye.
the vote for the noes.
Okay, I will. Okay, so all you guys are in for, any against or abstaining? There are no against or abstaining, so the motion moves for the new address to be put on the bylaws and the rules documents. All right, and the final bullet point, I don't see Kati here, but community engagement, not talking about it. Great. Commissioner nominees. That is underway. I got an email, I was copied on an email from Angie Henderson.
The council will nominate their nominees at their meeting tomorrow. So if you know anybody who is seeking one of our open seats, make sure they've got a council member ready to nominate them tomorrow, and then the voting will happen at the next council meeting.
I did not tell my people to tell their council members. I told my people that we would put it through their council people. Do I need to go tell them to advocate for themselves?
They should communicate with their council member or a council member at large.
Okay.
We can talk.
I understood that we were gonna do that for them. Okay. Go find their person. Okay. I will do that. Great. I see an announcement.
Yes, one of the pre-hearing meetings is tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the Davidson room in this building here.
So that's Gerlinda, Charles, and Ben? Okay, and
Yes.
anybody else who wants to attend?
And we're trying to work through, it's not clear whether or not we can have an announced meeting in the office space we're in now. And we are trying to get definitive answer on that.
That's good to know. I also want to say I'm not totally clear on MHRC's role in the whole Diane Nash commemoration and gala and everything, but it was excellent. I was really sad I wasn't there. But I know that y'all worked hard on it, whatever part that we had. And thank you for everybody that contributed to it. That was much needed, and I think was like a very healing thing for a lot of people from what I understood, so.
Yes, I was in a debrief meeting, and the two co-chairs, one being Zofat, on purpose singled out Kathy and her contributions to bringing it all together, and also Crystal, who is sitting over in the corner, for their, I think, if you ask me, if they hadn't been there, stuff would have fell apart. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, stuff fall apart, protectors. Yeah, I could tell we were really active in the background, and that was really excellent. So thank you to Kati and to Crystal. Okay, so then other than that, do we have anything else? Do we know of stuff that's coming up so I can put it in my calendar so I don't miss it? I am on the newsletter now, and I know about that. But anything else?
We will try to put something together in the next day or so, and whatever Kathy was going to announce tonight, we need to get it on email.
Okay, that's good to know. That would be great. Is that night? Are you thinking daytime or nighttime? You don't know. Okay. All right. Ben wants to motion us to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
Anyone against or abstain? Okay, we are, the motion to adjourn, so moves.
And then I guess this is separate from the meeting, but.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.